I never imagined I'd be airing out my family drama on a public forum, let alone feeling this furious as I type. But here I am, seething exhausted, and frankly still trying to process how everything spiraled out of control. So let me walk you through my life, the part before everything fell apart. My name's Ethan Mitchell. I'm 32, live in Minneapolis, and have spent the last decade working as a veterinary technician at one of the busiest emergency animal hospitals in the Midwest. The pay isn't glamorous, around $65,000 a year, but the job, it's meaningful. There's a kind of fulfillment that comes with helping a collapsed Labrador get back on his feet or watching a tiny kitten make it through a fever. Sure, it comes with scratches, bite wounds, and the occasional projective. Everything, but when a pet parent breaks down crying out of gratitude, it's worth more than any Wall Street paycheck. You don't do this job for luxury, you do it because you give a damn. But if you've ever tried saving for a house on a vet tech salary, you'd know it's like climbing Everest with a paper straw. From the moment I turned 22, I made that dream my mission. That meant living like a broke college kid for nearly 10 years, sharing a grimy two-bedroom apartment with 3 roommates, one of whom was storing imported French cheese in his sock drawer. Long story, driving a beat-up 2003 Toyota Corolla that sounded like a lawnmower on life support, and living on a diet of rice, eggs, and the occasional clearance frozen burrito. While other people my age were partying, buying craft cocktails, or upgrading phones annually, I was stashing every extra dollar from overnight shifts into a high-yield savings account. No vacations, no impulse purchases, just relentless sacrifice. I studied mortgage rates like some people study fantasy football stats. My fun was watching plumbing tutorials on YouTube. It sounds pathetic, but I was determined to have something that was mine. Not handed to me, not borrowed, earned. And that's what made what happened next so incredibly maddening. If I had to sum up my older sister in one word, it would be exhausting. But let me back up. Her name's Madison. She's 35, lives in our parents' guest house in Scottsdale, Arizona, rent-free of course, and somehow manages to live like a VIP influencer despite having no visible income stream. You know the type. Imagine every cliché about social media boss babes thrown into one person: the constant photo shoots, the energy crystal quotes, the sponsored posts with sketchy brands, and the delusion that she's one viral TikTok away from financial freedom. That's Madison. Multiply that by 10, add 3 kids from 3 different guys she refers to as co-creators of abundance, and you've got my sister. She's been chasing a dream lifestyle she can't afford for over a decade now. One year it was a health coaching gig. Next, it was a vegan snack subscription box. Most recently, she launched a healing crystal candle line called Inner Fire, which lasted all of 8 weeks before she declared herself no longer aligned with flame energy. I wish I was making this up. Madison treats her children, Julian 8, Bella 5, and Phoenix 2, more like photo props than actual humans. She dresses them in coordinated pastel outfits, snaps photos of them holding up inspirational signs, then dumps them at mom and dad's house so she can attend networking events, also known as champagne brunches, with other MLM recruits. She hasn't held down a real job since high school, where she quit working at a Chili's because the uniform clashed with her aura. And yet somehow she always has the newest iPhone, the trendiest yoga mats, and a closet that would make a Kardashian raise an eyebrow. How? 2 words: our parents, mostly dad. To this day, I still remember being 14 and asking for new sneakers after mine had literal holes in the soles. My father looked at me and said, "Money doesn't grow on trees." But 2 weeks later, Madison got a brand new laptop for schoolwork, which was mostly used for designing vision boards. Nothing's changed. If she needs something, Dad finds a way. It's for the kids, he says. She's under so much stress. I used to bite my tongue trying to focus on my own path. Let her have the spotlight. I was content living in the shadows, slowly building toward something real. Back when I was still sharing an apartment with 3 grown men and scrubbing cat pee off old towels for overtime, Madison was living in a 4-bedroom colonial house in the upscale Green Valley community. It was a gift from our parents: hardwood floors, granite countertops, security gate out front. It was worth close to $900,000. How long did she keep it? Barely a year. She claimed she needed to reinvest her energy and convinced Dad it would be an aligned opportunity to sell the house and fund her new venture, a juice cleanse brand/recording label for her then boyfriend Troy. He called himself T Elemental and had a SoundCloud full of tracks titled things like Moon Waves and Spiritual Grind. I wish I was joking. Predictably, Troy vanished a few months later, taking the money with him. Madison went back to living in our parents' guest house, and no one ever mentioned the lost home or the lost money again. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I kept working, I kept saving, I kept hustling, and eventually I made it on my own terms. But of course, Madison wasn't done being Madison. After years of ramen Craigslist couches and more overnight shifts than I can remember, I finally bought a home. It wasn't massive, but it was mine. A 3-bedroom ranch-style house just outside of Austin, Texas. Nothing glamorous unless you're the kind of person who gets excited about popcorn ceilings and a 1970s carpeted bathroom. But it was structurally solid, had a nice little backyard shaded by an old pecan tree, and was in a quiet neighborhood where folks waved when you drove by. The kitchen had been painted this absolutely absurd neon orange by the previous owner, and there was a room with walls covered in SpongeBob wallpaper. But you know what? I loved every inch of it. The day I closed on the house, I walked inside, sat down on the dusty living room floor, and cried. Not little sniffles either. Full-blown, messy, cathartic sobbing. 10 years of sacrifice, 10 years of saving, 10 years of being overlooked in favor of my sister's constant chaos, finally worth it. Madison had been handed the world on a silver platter. I built my world with blistered hands. But here's where things got wild. About 5 years prior, when our parents gave Madison that big house in Green Valley, it felt like a final insult. Still, I never complained. I knew if I ever got anything, I wanted it to be mine legally, proudly, and without owing anyone a favor or apology. So I started fixing up my little house one room at a time. Painted the kitchen a calming seafoam green. Tore out the bathroom carpet, yes, carpet in the bathroom. I even converted one of the bedrooms into a proper office where I could decompress after long shifts or just relax with my rescue beagle Luna. Life was finally starting to feel stable. And then came the Tuesday. It had been an absolute nightmare at work. We had 3 emergency surgeries back to back. One of them involved a retriever who had swallowed a fidget spinner, 2 Lego bricks, and somehow a pair of Barbie shoes. I'd been running on pure caffeine and stubbornness. I got home collapsed on my faded but comfortable garage sale sofa and was just about to drift off when my phone rang. It was Dad. Now, my dad calling out of the blue isn't usually a big deal. but something about his voice immediately raised alarm bells. He sounded too casual, too rehearsed. He started with a weird, "Hey champ, you free for a bit? I thought I'd swing by." I hesitated but said sure. He lived 20 minutes away. I figured maybe he just wanted to talk about refinancing or needed help setting up his new phone again. Big mistake. Exactly 22 minutes later, two cars pulled into my driveway. My dad stepped out of his shiny black Cadillac Escalade, the one he always said was for the family, but which only Madison ever drove. Then out of a brand new gleaming white Range Rover Madison, wearing cherry red Louboutins and oversized sunglasses like she'd stepped out of a music video. My heart sank. The energy was off from the second they walked in. Madison barely looked at me before muttering, "Ugh, this furniture is so dated." Then she flicked her phone's camera on and started filming a story. "Just got to my brother's. Wait till y'all see this tragic beige paint job," she said with a giggle. I wanted to scream, but I kept it together and led them to the living room. She flopped onto my favorite chair like she owned it, snapping more pics and muttering about bad lighting ruining her engagement potential. Dad was unusually quiet. He kept doing that nervous throat clear he does when he's trying to sell something. Then finally he spoke. "Son," he said with this painfully forced chuckle, "your sister's been going through a lot recently." "Oh my God, Dad, don't make it sound dramatic," Madison interrupted, tossing her hair. "I'm just realigning my brand focus." My stomach turned. Dad continued, "We've been talking, and we think this house might be a bit much for just one person. You're young, working all the time, whereas your sister has 3 growing kids." I blinked. "What are you saying?" He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "We think you should give Madison your house." I stared at my father, genuinely convinced I was hallucinating. Maybe the stress from work had broken something in my brain. Maybe I had passed out in the break room back at the hospital, and this was some twisted fever dream induced by exhaustion and cat dander. "Excuse me," I said. Madison rolled her eyes so hard I thought she might pull a muscle. "Don't be so extra, Ethan. It's not like you're actually using this place to its potential." She waved her hand, still holding her phone, doing a slow, dramatic pan of my modest living room, like she was scouting it for a reality show makeover. "This would be perfect for the kids. Jackson needs a space for his content studio." "Jackson is 8, I said flatly. "He doesn't need a content studio." Dad, meanwhile, was putting on his best businessman, trying to stay reasonable voice. "Look, son, you're young, unmarried, focused on your career. You could easily get a modern apartment near the hospital. Meanwhile, your sister's children need stability, space to grow. Think about it, this place is just better suited to a family." That was it. I felt something snap in me. Years of watching Madison get whatever she wanted. Years of staying quiet while she failed at one pyramid scheme after another and still got rescued. Years of pretending her branding partnerships were real work while I pulled overnight shifts and wiped blood off exam tables. Stability, I said, my voice low, like the stability of the 4-bedroom house you gave her, the one she sold to fund her boyfriend's music label. Madison looked up from her phone with that same expression she used when someone questioned her on Instagram. That was different. Jackson had a vision. His music was going to change the game. He ran off to Atlanta with your money 2 weeks later. Dad held up his hands. "Let's not dwell on the past." "No, let's," I snapped. Because while I was clipping coupons and doing double shifts, she was on business retreats in Miami getting full-body detoxes and posting "had boss babe" selfies. Madison gasped as if I'd insulted her lineage. You're being so negative right now. I'm trying to rebuild. You don't understand how hard it is to be a female entrepreneur. Madison. I said posting affiliate links for weight loss tea and fake skincare is not entrepreneurship. That's when Dad played his trump card, the one he thought would shut me down. Well, if you can't support your sister during this difficult time, maybe it's time to reconsider your place in the estate. Silence. Even Madison paused her recording. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My heart pounded in my ears. He was threatening to cut me out of his will. The same man who didn't help me with a single cent toward this house was now implying he'd punish me if I didn't just give it away to my chronically irresponsible sister and her 3 TikTok-aspiring children. And that's when I knew I'd had enough. I got up without saying a word, walked into my office, and came back with a thick blue folder. I dropped it on the coffee table with a satisfying thud. "What's this?" Dad asked, eyeing it warily. "Receipts," I said calmly, "literal and metaphorical." See. Ever since Madison sold her house, I had a feeling something like this might happen. I started documenting everything: screenshots, bank statements, old social media posts, all her absurd business pitches, every failed investment. Some people scrapbook. I prepare for war. I pulled out the first sheet. "Let's talk numbers. The house you gave her. The one in Green Valley. At the time, it was worth about $875,000. She sold it for $890,000. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Madison suddenly found her manicure fascinating. "Where did that money go?" I continued. $50K to Jackson's record label. Gone. $200K into your crystal therapy business. 3 months later, declared it spiritually misaligned. $300K into some magnetic water company that turned out to be an MLM scam. "It was ionized hydration," Madison shouted. "Oh, sorry," I said dryly. "That makes it sound much more legitimate." The room was still. Dad's face had gone pale. Madison had stopped filming and was now nervously adjusting her blouse. "She's already burned through more than your entire net worth, Dad," I said. "So go ahead. Cut me out of the will. There won't be anything left by the time you're done enabling her." Madison looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "This is so unfair," she finally snapped, leaping from the armchair like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "You can't just throw numbers around like that." "Money isn't everything. What about my children, their future? The same kids you're turning into social media props?" I asked, deadpan. "You're trying to mold them into influencers before they can even spell their own names." "At least I have kids," she shouted. "What do you have?" "A bunch of sick pets and this depressing little suburban nightmare of a house." I wasn't even mad. That comment just confirmed everything. Dad finally opened his mouth, but I could hear the strain in his voice. "Now, son, the numbers don't tell the whole story. Your sister's ventures, those were investments. We're just trying to help her get back on her feet." "She's never stood on her own feet a day in her life," I barked. "You've bailed her out of every reckless decision she's made since she could legally vote. You gave her a house. She blew it. You gave her cash. She lost it. And now you want to take my home because she needs better lighting for her Instagram." Madison was crying now, but it was the performative kind, the one she saves for dramatic reels. Even as tears welled up, she was subtly angling her phone to catch the right light. "I just need a better setup. My content creation is suffering. This guest house aesthetic is killing my brand." I almost laughed. "You mean the fake followers you've been buying? Because I've got screenshots of that too." Her jaw dropped. You wouldn't. Oh, I would. I pulled out another stack of paper from the folder. 10,000 fake followers purchased just last month. I wonder what your sponsors would say if they knew half your engagement was bots in Eastern Europe. That's when Dad jumped in again, trying desperately to steer the conversation back. That's enough. This kind of attitude is exactly why we're worried about you. This bitterness, this anger is unhealthy. This is family. We should support each other. No, Dad. Supporting someone isn't the same as being manipulated. You've let Madison weaponize her failures and turn them into excuses for stealing from people who actually work hard. And now you're standing here threatening to disinherit me for not falling in line. There was a beat of silence, heavy and brittle. Then Madison attempted her last Hail Mary. My followers are going to hear about this, she said, swiping her phone back up. I'll post the truth. I'll expose this toxic family dynamic. I'll go live tonight. Without blinking, I reached into the folder and pulled out one final sheet, the legal agreement Dad had her sign when he handed over that first house years ago. The one she conveniently forgot about. The one that stated in clear terms that the funds were to be used for a responsible investment, or she would be liable for restitution. Her hand trembled as she stared at the paper. The phone slipped from her grip and hit the floor with a dull clack. You forged your usage reports, Madison, and you lied about the nature of your ventures. This isn't just family drama anymore, it's fraud. And unless both of you get out of my house right now, I'll have no problem walking these documents straight into an attorney's office first thing tomorrow. Dad went pale. Madison stood frozen. The look in her eyes wasn't rage anymore, it was fear. Genuine dawning fear that the fantasy she had carefully curated was about to come crashing down. I stood tall, shoulders back, the folder still in hand. This is my home. I paid for it. I repaired it. I earned every inch of it. You want to cut me out of the will. Fine, but you will not bulldoze over me to rescue her again. Neither of them said a word. Now I said, voice ice cold, get out of my house. After slamming the door on them that night, I truly believed that was the end. I thought they'd be too embarrassed, too stunned to try anything else. I even allowed myself a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd reflect. Foolish optimism. The next couple of days were surprisingly quiet. Madison didn't post any new stories, just a few vague quotes on her feed about toxic siblings and choosing peace over drama. My father didn't call. For the first time in weeks, I thought things might finally settle down. At work, I buried myself in back-to-back surgeries, including a particularly delicate one on a rescue pit bull who had been hit by a car. She pulled through like a champion, and the joy in her new owner's eyes gave me a moment of peace I hadn't felt in weeks. Then came Thursday. I was mid-procedure, carefully scaling a senior cat's teeth when my phone started vibrating uncontrollably in my pocket. I never check my phone during work, but something in my gut twisted. During my break, I took a peek at my screen, dozens of notifications. The first was from my neighbor, Kyle Bro. Why is there a moving truck in your driveway? Then another. Your sister and some movers are hauling furniture into your place. Is everything okay? I nearly dropped my phone. Panicked, I called Kyle immediately. Tell me you're joking. His voice was uneasy. Ethan, your dad, and Madison showed up with a U-Haul like an hour ago. There's a locksmith with them. I thought you were helping them move in or something. I could hardly breathe. My hands shook as I explained the situation to my supervisor. Family emergency, I said, trying to stay composed as I sprinted out the door. Driving home felt like a nightmare. I kept thinking they wouldn't dare. No one is that entitled. Right. Oh, but they would. As I turned onto my street, I saw it. A massive U-Haul parked in my driveway. Madison was in the front yard directing movers like she was the executive producer of a reality show. Dad stood by calmly chatting with a locksmith who was changing my locks. And her kids, they were running around like it was recess at Disney World. "We get to pick our rooms," the oldest shouted gleefully, while the youngest was drawing on my garage door with a red marker. I slammed my brakes and parked across the driveway, blocking the truck in. I leapt out of my car and stormed up the walkway. Madison spotted me and had the nerve to look annoyed. "Ugh, Ethan, you're ruining the surprise. I had a whole reveal planned for my followers." I was too stunned to speak. My own sister was trying to steal my house and live stream it like it was some kind of inspirational home makeover series. Dad stepped between us, putting on his best faux calm demeanor. "Son, we decided to help you make the right decision. Madison and the kids need stability. You'll be happier in an apartment closer to work. You brought a locksmith to my house," I said, pointing toward the man who was now looking thoroughly uncomfortable. "You had no right. Did you even check the deed?" The locksmith started stammering. They said it was a family property. Showed me some documents." "Documents," I said flatly. "Show me." Madison clapped her hands like it was a game. "Dad, get the papers." Dad scrambled to pull out a folder. The pages looked like they had been printed off some janky template website, probably from a Kinko's. But before they could try anything further, I took out my phone and pulled up my property deed, mortgage, tax filings, and utility records, all in my name. I turned to the locksmith. "You've been tricked. They have no legal claim here." He looked like he was about to faint. Still holding her phone, Madison sidled up to me with a sickly sweet tone. "Be reasonable, Ethan. I'm a mom of 3 with a growing business. The guest house doesn't even have proper lighting for my motivational Mondays." I stared at her. "You're filming a breaking and entering, Madison." And that's when I hit dial. "Hello, police. I'd like to report an attempted home invasion in progress." The moment I ended that call to the police, it was like I flipped a switch. Madison dropped her influencer smile in record time, spinning toward my face with wide, panicked eyes. "You called the cops on your own sister," she shrieked, stepping back as if I'd just set off an explosion. "This is literally abusive. I'm shaking right now. My followers." "I don't care about your followers," I said, stepping away from her and toward the front door. "You're trespassing, both of you." Dad still tried to act calm, like he was somehow the adult in this situation. "Now, son, let's not escalate. This is a misunderstanding. Family doesn't need to involve law enforcement." "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "Family doesn't try to steal from each other." Behind him, the locksmith was frantically packing up his kit like a man who suddenly realized he was one bad decision away from losing his license. The movers were hesitating now, too, unsure if they should still be unloading Madison's pink velvet sofa or running for the truck. Then came the cherry on top. Madison's 8-year-old son, Liam, emerged from the house with an iPad, pointed it at me, and began narrating. "What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel," he said with enthusiasm. "Today my mom gets a new house, but Uncle Ethan's being super sus." I blinked. Is this my life now? 10 minutes later, 2 police cruisers rolled up. As soon as the officer stepped out, Madison's entire demeanor flipped. She slumped against the mailbox, tears welling chest, heaving like a scene straight out of a low-budget soap opera. Officer, she wailed, catching the good light with practiced precision. Thank God you're here. My brother is trying to kick me and my babies out of our family home. The officers exchanged a quick glance. They weren't buying it. Ma'am, said the older officer, do you have identification, proof of residence? Well, this is a family matter, she stammered. This house belongs to us. Dad stepped in, holding up their ridiculous folder. We have documents. The younger officer took one glance and sighed. Sir, this appears to be a printed PowerPoint. I nearly laughed. I handed over my phone, showing them every official document I had: title deed, mortgage, taxes, even utility bills. My driver's license matched the address. It was clear cut. These people, I said calmly, showed up with a locksmith while I was at work and tried to take over my house. They are trespassing. Madison tried to jump in with some story about agreements and spiritual realignment, but the second officer cut her off. Ma'am, he said firmly, do you have any legal documentation proving this house belongs to you? Silence. Then Dad tried fumbling with his printouts like a nervous teenager with forged homework. These are nothing, just family agreements, understandings. Sir, the officer replied, forged documents are a crime. I'm going to need to keep these for evidence. As that was happening, the movers were pulling Madison's vision board out of the house, complete with sparkly writing that said, manifesting my empire across photos of my kitchen. Where should we put this, one of them asked awkwardly. Return it to the truck, the officer said. All unauthorized items must be removed. Madison tried to snatch it back. I saged that space. You're disrupting my creative energy. That's when another patrol car pulled up. Apparently, Liam's earlier comment about the time Mommy took stuff from the mall had triggered something. The officer who stepped out approached the older one and quietly said, there's a warrant for her in the Nordstrom case. Yep, shoplifting. Ma'am, the senior officer said I need you to turn around. You're being placed under arrest. What? No! Madison screamed. This is a misunderstanding. I'm an influencer. Do you know what this will do to my brand? Dad started shouting, this isn't necessary, she's just emotional. But the cops were done. They cuffed Madison, who still tried to adjust her posture for a flattering angle. Can I at least fix my lashes for the mugshot, she begged. No, the officer deadpanned. Then they turned to Dad. Sir, these documents indicate attempted fraud. We'll need to take your statement and likely open an investigation. He turned pale. The locksmith looked like he was about to cry. I swear, I didn't know. They said it was their family's property. I'll cooperate. I'll do anything. I sighed. You'll give a full written statement, then we'll talk. Watching Dad and Madison being ushered off the property was surreal, like the final scene in a movie I never auditioned for, but somehow got cast in. I stood in the driveway as the sun began to set, watching movers return furniture to the U-Haul, listening to my niece scream about TikTok clout and toxic masculinity. And for the first time in days, maybe weeks, I felt calm. They were finally out of my house. And maybe, just maybe, they'd stay out of my life. By the next morning, I figured things had finally settled. Madison and Dad were probably too embarrassed or legally restrained to try anything again. I woke up to a rare quiet in my house, fed my rescue mutt Luna, and even made coffee without thinking about someone filming it for Monday manifestation mornings. But peace is a luxury when your family thinks your hard-earned home is up for grabs. By noon, I got a call from Detective Barnes, one of the officers who had responded the day before. He was professional but direct. Mr. Callahan, we've begun investigating the forged documents found on your property. Are you available to come in and give a formal statement? You bet I was. At the station, I laid out everything: the will threats, the fake paperwork, Madison's influencer scams, the folder I'd kept since the day she sold her first house became central evidence. I even showed them screenshots of her posts where she claimed family property rights and her video where she said manifesting my dream home through universal alignment and Dad's checkbook, LOL. But that wasn't all. Remember the locksmith? The guy who helped them break into my house? Well, he showed up at the precinct right after me, papers in hand, shaking like a leaf. I didn't know he repeated. I didn't verify ownership. I swear they showed me documents. I just assumed they looked like a family. Detective Barnes raised an eyebrow. They looked like a family. Not a functional family, the locksmith mumbled, but like real. He was clearly remorseful. I didn't press charges. Instead, I asked him to give a full signed statement, which he did, detailing how Madison and Dad pressured him with fake paperwork and claimed it was an emergency change of locks for a family-owned home. That statement cracked everything wide open. Turns out those fake papers weren't just laughably bad. They included forged legal seals, fake notary stamps, and my forged signature. Now it wasn't just attempted trespassing, it was full-on real estate fraud. And just when I thought karma had peaked, it kicked down the door. The Nordstrom shoplifting incident, not Madison's only offense. The detective team uncovered a whole history of petty theft, refund fraud, and get this, over 30 sponsorship scams. She'd accepted promotional deals from small brands, ordered products with influencer codes, then returned them for cash while still posting pre-filmed glowing reviews. One beauty brand she scammed out of $8,000 worth of luxury skincare was already preparing a lawsuit. As the investigators pulled on thread after thread, more mess unraveled. Apparently, Madison had also opened fake shell LLCs under various names to apply for pandemic-era business loans and never paid any of them back. She was now facing multiple charges of wire fraud, false claims, and influencer-based product misrepresentation. Dad didn't escape either. You remember all those business investments he poured into her wellness brand and music incubator? Turns out he funded it using money embezzled from his own company, a mid-size supply chain firm in New Jersey. He'd created a fake consulting branch under Madison's name and siphoned off company funds for branding research trips, aka spa days, and Cancun retreats. His employer caught wind of the police inquiry, and within a week he was fired. Now he's being sued for embezzlement, tax fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. And just when you think the house of cards can't collapse any harder, there's the kids. Madison's oldest son, Liam, that 8-year-old iPad vlogger, had unknowingly become a key witness. His statements about mommy taking stuff from the mall, daddy paying the store man, and mom's vision board with pictures of uncle's house helped the investigators piece together Madison's pattern of entitlement and manipulation. But there's a silver lining here. Liam's biological dad, Trey, a man I hadn't heard about in years, filed for emergency custody. Turns out he's now married to a family therapist and living in suburban Virginia. The court granted him temporary custody of all 3 kids, including the 2 youngest whose fathers were never involved. The kids are now in school, seeing real counselors, and according to Trey, finally laughing without needing to go live on TikTok. And me, I finally started to breathe again. I patched up the holes in my garage wall. Thanks toddler marker art repainted the living room Madison had tried to turn into a chakra content zone and turned my guest room into a proper office. Even the neighbors changed. The same ones who used to side-eye me for having loud overnight vet shifts now dropped off cookies, congratulated me on standing firm, and one even left a card that read, "Finally the circus left town." The best part, I got an official letter from Madison's attorney a few weeks later. She's now living with her mom in Florida, far away from California. Media attention, facing 4 felony counts, banned from social media marketing, and deeply in debt. The letter begged for help, money for legal fees, a place to stay, a fresh start. I wrote no in thick red Sharpie and sent it back. It's been 3 months since the madness ended, and let me tell you, peace tastes sweeter when you fought like hell to earn it. My house, my home is finally what it was always meant to be, a sanctuary. No neon accent walls, no content corners, no toddler fingerprints on garage doors. Just me, Luna snoring on the couch, and the quiet hum of a life lived honestly. Every now and then I catch myself pausing while making coffee, glancing around the living room. Not because I expect a U-Haul or a fake locksmith to show up again, but because I'm grateful. Because everything in here, every chipped mug, every discount rug, every secondhand bookshelf I earned. No shortcuts, no inheritance threats, no manifesting scams. Just long shifts, scraped knees, and staying up late reading articles on how to install a garbage disposal. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't documented everything. If I hadn't trusted my instincts that one afternoon 5 years ago when Sarah, sorry Madison, sold her house like it was Monopoly money. I think about how easy it would have been to just give in, let Dad's threats scare me, let the guilt of family weigh me down again. But I didn't. Instead, I stood tall in the home I built, literally and metaphorically, and drew a line they couldn't cross. Madison still tries to contact me sometimes. Most of it's through cryptic social posts about betrayal and vampires who drain your light. She even hinted she's writing a memoir. I guess she forgot court records are public. Dad, I haven't heard from him directly since his indictment. Word is he's lawyering up and trying to settle before his company sues him into retirement. Part of me thinks he's still clinging to the illusion that he was just being a good father. That favoritism wasn't favoritism, it was love. But real love doesn't require you to give up your soul to prove loyalty. Real love doesn't ask you to sacrifice everything while someone else keeps taking. As for the kids, this is the part I hold on to most. They're okay. Better than okay, really. I got a letter from Trey last week. The kids are in therapy, enrolled in public school, and this made me smile. Liam started volunteering at an animal rescue. He wrote me a crayon-colored note that said, "Thanks for saving us and the puppies too." I kept that one on my fridge. So yeah, maybe I lost a sister. Maybe I burned a bridge or two. But I gained something more important. I got my life back. I got my home. I got my freedom. And I'll never again let anyone, family or not, tell me I don't deserve what I worked for. To anyone reading this who's ever been the less favorite, the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace, the one who was told to give up their dream for someone else's mistakes, don't. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for demanding respect. And you are absolutely not wrong for fighting for the life you've earned. Because sometimes the greatest act of love isn't sacrifice. It's finally saying enough and meaning it.